What's the rudest thing a guest has ever done in your home? Everyone has a story from their childhood that still pisses them off. This is mine. I was 5 years old and my snotty older cousin was over at our house. I had just gotten a copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for my birthday. He was getting his ass kicked by King Hippo and he got so angry he rage quit. But he didn't just rage quit. He ripped the cartridge out of the Nintendo and spit into it. Then he threw it across the room and stormed out. I told my parents what happened and they told his parents and they made him apologize. But the game was ruined. It would kind of play, but would freeze up all the time. My family barely had enough money to get me the game for my birthday. Never mind buying it again. I was sure I would never be able to play it again. Then for Christmas, this little crap got Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So my older brother went over to his house and switched our ruined cartridge with his. It was awesome. Story 2. I was a kid, probably 9 or 10, and my mom had a friend and her son over for lunch. The kid disappeared for about 10 minutes. And at the time, I thought he had gone to the bathroom because I really had to go. So when he came back, I quickly maneuvered my way past him into the room before the bathroom, where we had a fish tank. This would be completely irrelevant if the fish tank wasn't cloudy and swirling about. At first glance, I didn't know what it was until I noticed a dead fish moving in a whirlpool. The kid reached into the fish tank and squeezed the ever-loving life out of every single fish in that tank. Story 3. Not nearly in the same ballpark as the rest of these, but my in-laws always just walk right in like they own the place. Drives me damn nuts. A couple of years ago, I put some vinyl window tinting on the front door to keep the house cooler in the summer. I could see out the window, but no one could see in. I'd lock the door and enjoy the looks of confusion on their faces as they tried to open the door and couldn't. Story 4. Wasn't home when this happened, but some family friend I've never met, and their kid comes over one afternoon. Kid gets bored and decided it's a great idea to disassemble every Lego build I've kept over the last 10 years. Almost everything was built from imagination, so no instructions to rebuild again. I was devastated when I got home seeing Lego pieces spread across the entire floor of my room. Story 5. Dyed her hair red in our bathroom sink, staining the brand new granite countertop, then dripped onto the new tile floor, then dripped onto the hardwood floor in the hallway, and ultimately slept in our guest bed with wet, freshly dyed red hair, staining the sheets and pillowcase. Story 6. They broke our one TV and didn't pay for a replacement. My family has always been dirt poor, and my mom busted her ass to buy that crappy tube TV too. Story 7. We had a bunch of pizza in the fridge we'd ordered the night before they arrived. There were 3 other families already there, so we had ordered a lot and there were much leftovers, and everyone who was there at the time had pitched in to pay. The one family who hadn't been there for pizza arrived the morning after and were talking about going out to eat. The families were all okay with this, thinking it'd be great to have lunch in individual families and get back together for dinner. Everyone was loading up, including the most recent arrival family, but when we drove off, they unloaded, went back inside, and ate all the pizza. We would have told them it was fine if they had said, "Yo, could we eat that pizza for lunch?" But pretending they were going someplace and then sneaking back inside and eating it was so shady. 1. They aren't poor, just really cheap. 2. This was my uncle and his family. 3. This was at my grandma's house. She had just passed and everyone was getting together for the funeral. My mom was basically in charge, and since I'm the oldest grandchild at 24 years old, I was heavily involved as well. 4. We locked the door, but every family had a key. 5. We did not confront them. It isn't worth it to get into it with them when we barely see them anyway. I think my mom would prefer to build a stronger bond with him and his family since he is her little brother. They're staying at our house right now. Story 8. A colleague was coming into town for a meeting. I invited him to stay with me so he didn't have to stay with our boss. I specifically told him that the beer in the fridge wasn't mine and asked him not to drink it. Well, not only did he drink all my roommate's beer while I slept and refused to replace it, he also trashed my apartment. All the cupboards left open, toilet unflushed, beer cans and cigarettes everywhere. Yeah, he smoked inside. The following day, he made me so uncomfortable in my own home by repeatedly telling me that he was disappointed that we didn't duck, and that he thought that's why I invited him to stay with me. He knows that I live in a work apartment, and that we have a guest room specifically for company employees that travel to the city. 1. Clarification on my living situation. I have 2 roommates high up in my company that travel a lot. Work got a 3-bedroom, and they pay all my utilities in exchange for me washing the sheets, dishes, etc. When they aren't around, sometimes I get asked to host other traveling colleagues. Neither of my roommates were there when this happened. 2. I did not take pictures. I wish I had thought of that. I did, however, have a witness. A close coworker friend spent the night because he had been drinking. The douche colleague then accused us of sleeping together. We didn't. And said that if I slept with him, there was no reason for me not to sleep with him too. Story 9. My friend entered my home, and my very typically shy cat came up to see what was what and greet him. He said, "I hate cats," and kicked her. Haven't talked to him since, and edit to say he knew I had a cat. We were in our 20 years old. He wasn't a petulant child. I'm my cat's protector and advocate, but I hate to say that back then I had a lot of confidence issues, and I was taken way aback by his swift action. Caught me off guard. I think I yelled, "What the heck? Don't kick my cat!" But I can't remember anything I did that was remarkable afterwards, other than the decision to stop inviting him over. No throat punching or otherwise. Story 10. Had my wife's ex-husband turn up at the door to stay for 10 days. We moved to Australia from United Kingdom. He came over, ostensibly to see his daughter, and arrived at the door with a suitcase. His 10-year-old daughter was ecstatic. "What do you do?" We assumed he'd get a hotel, motel, something. While living with us, broke a sandstone wedding present we had received from my brother. Damn that guy. We never badmouthed him, just swallowed it all with a sanguine smile. At 21 years old, daughter says, "Thanks for not telling me my dad is an idiot. I've discovered he is myself." Story 11. My little sister, 23 years old at the time, house and dog, sat my 3 dogs for a month while my husband and I went to Europe. One of these dogs happens to be an 8-week-old puppy of hers that we adopted because she couldn't keep him after a recent breakup and move. Everything seemed to be going just fine via the FaceTime calls and almost daily texts. But it was a whole other story when we got home. There was dog piss and crap everywhere. Under the kitchen table, all over inside, and the entire surrounding area by the puppy's kennel. She apparently ran out of puppy pads and instead started using our damn bath towels to line the kennel. Instead of washing the towels, she threw them in a pile in the backyard. When she ran out of towels, she moved onto my husband's shirts that were in the laundry. She also had some guy stay with her that she allowed to smoke cigarettes in our house, including our bedroom. At one point, she accidentally locked herself out, climbed through a window, and broke a lamp in the process. She also broke our vacuum in her pathetic attempt to clean up before we came home. While all of this was happening, a pipe apparently broke underground in the backyard on day 4 of our trip. It was raining heavily, so it was hard to tell, especially if you completely ignored the sound of full blast running water. And the notice that was put on our door by the city to contact them urgently. Sister took the notice, set it on the table, and never mentioned it. We came home to an $1,800 water bill on top of everything else. It was an utter disaster to come home to after a month of traveling and a full day of flying. We were ducking furious. We made her pay to replace all of our towels, have the carpets cleaned, and she paid for the puppy's food and pet insurance for a year. I didn't talk to her for quite a while after that. Little Sisters is fine now. It's been 4 years. Back to who she normally was, a responsible, tidy, respectful person. This whole thing happened to coincide with an awful breakup she had after 7 years that spun her into depression and self-worth issues, paired with some heavy drinking. Our relationship is back on track and has been since she profusely apologized and paid up. But I had refused to speak to her for about 7 months because of it. At the end of the day, it's just stuff. Story 12. My in-laws hated me. We invited them over for Thanksgiving dinner, and upon arrival, they asked me to leave and come back a few hours later because they wanted to follow their tradition of preparing the meal alone as a family. They are now my ex-in-laws. Story 13. One of my best mates came to spend the night, so my folks decided to splash out and get Chinese takeout for everyone. I come from a family of 7, so he made 8. We got 6 dishes and 2 big tubs of fried rice. My mate helped himself to the entire first tub and, when confronted about it by me, helpfully pointed out that there was still another tub for the 7 of us. Story 14. Stole medicine out of my bathroom after eating my food and smoking all my cigs that were on the table. I know they stole the medicine because of the blood-curdling scream that come out of the bathroom because the medicine they ingested was the pills from a urinary tract infection. I didn't even invite him. He was a roommate's guest. Story 15. My grandpa was visiting us for a day and I was ill. Had fever and all, so I was in bed resting. After we all ate lunch, I crawled back into my bed. 5 minutes later, he came into my room, kicked me out of my bed, and started to have a nap. My mom came to my room to check on me a few minutes later. She found me laying on the floor next to bed and kicked him out of my bed, told him to leave. I was like 10 years old then. My grandpa is useless, but believes men runs the world. My grandma only had 2 daughters, and he was pissed. Eldest sibling is always the best, but my mom, youngest, being brighter than the eldest, pissed him off. Then my mom had me, daughter, and my little brother. He was pissed with my arrival, but ecstatic with my brother. He tried to control my brother, but he couldn't because he was growing old and my parents and grandma interfered with it constantly. I was weaker than him, so I was an easy target for him. He did so much more than taking my bed, like he tried to run me over with his car. My grandpa was driving and sped up, braked in front of me in a mall parking lot as a joke. One day he took me to shopping and it was extremely boring for me because he only shopped for himself and he made me carry everything he bought. Once we got back to his car, he had me put everything away in the trunk, and as soon as I closed the trunk, he drove away. What the heck? I was confused. Didn't know what to do, so I just stood there, lost. But he came back a few minutes later laughing and saying, "You didn't really think I'd leave you, did you?" I was upset, but happy he came back, so I reached for the door, and I missed because he moved the car forward. He did that few more times and drove away again. What the heck? I was crying at this point. Then I spotted something on the ground. It was my angel pocket, Polly Pocket. I must have dropped it while I was chasing the car. I started to walk toward it and I saw him coming this way. Next moment, my butt was on the ground and the car stopped right in front of me with a loud screech. He sped up and braked to scare me. I sure was scared all right. I thought he was going to run me over. I was crying uncontrollably. He told me to shut up and get in. As we were leaving the parking lot, he said, "You're no fun, it was just a joke, I sure had fun. My grandpa is an ass." Story 16. My grandma visited from out of state for my high school graduation. She stayed for 2 weeks past my graduation, threw a fit if I tried to sleep past 9 a.m., and told my mom that she needed to work less so she could clean the house better. Story 17. While my husband and I were gone at work, my mother-in-law took it upon herself to clean our house and organize our things. Twice. Yeah, she's only allowed in the house on an invitation-only basis now. Story 18. Happened to me in the 3rd grade. My mom's friend's son stole my holographic hockey cards. I didn't even notice until the next day when I saw him on the bus showing the cards he stole from me to his friends. I did get my cards back along with a pretty nice bouncy ball. I also remembered another story that happened a year ago at my parents' house warming party. One of the guests asked if the flooring was real hardwood or laminate, then proceeded to test it out by taking out their key and scratching the floor. It was hardwood and it left a scratch. Who the heck does such a thing? Story 19. One time a younger guest went on my parents' iPad and bought around $80 worth of in-app transactions. They were young, but the response after getting caught was along the lines of, "The guest should be given nice things." They were young, so maybe they didn't know better. About the guest. They were 6 years old at the time. I don't remember if the family paid the money back. However, I'm pretty sure the kid got punished severely. We gave the kid the iPad and left him alone, and in hindsight, yes, that was pretty stupid. Story 20. Had some friends over and one of my buddies went to the bathroom. When I walked in, I heard something rattling. He was stealing Vicodin that my wife got the day before from getting a root canal and still needed. When I walked in is referring to walking back in the house. That bathroom was off the kitchen. He didn't hear. Me come in the house and had the door to the bathroom cracked slightly, so I looked in when I heard the rattling. No, I don't just walk into the bathroom. At the same time, most of my guy friends just slightly shut the door, and even that when they're taking a leak. Our group of friends have been friends now for around 30-some-odd years, so we all probably too close. Story 21. My husband let a former coworker crash on the couch because he had been drinking and we didn't want him to drive. Woke up the next morning and he had stolen our computer, a cell phone, a little bit of cash, and our cigarettes. Turns out he had a substances problem. We got our computer back. Had a drunk friend puke on my son's bedroom floor. He thought it was the bathroom. My son wasn't home, thank goodness. Had a different drunk friend pee all over my bathroom floor, which I discovered by walking into the bathroom the next morning while wearing socks. I need to stop letting drunk people stay over. Story 22. Not sure if this would be considered rude, but for sure not a good thing to do. I had 2 Australian kids staying at my house for a baseball tournament one time. One of them was a chronic bedwetter but never told us. He stayed for 5 nights and peed the bed each night without telling us. Instead, each night, he pushed whatever he peed on to the end of the bed. First night, the sheets. Second night, the actual mattress protector to stop any pee from getting to it. It was a bunk bed my brothers and I slept on as children. And lastly, he peed directly on the mattress for 3 nights. Ruined the mattress, and we had no idea till he left. The real kicker, though, is when he took a nap on our new couch. Peed all over it and then fled the scene, and we assumed the dog had done it, until we saw the bed that is... I think that is something you should tell people who open their home to you so they can prepare. And please don't sleep on the couch if you know you got a problem. Also, not trying to shame anyone for this kind of stuff. I feel like it's more common than most people realize, and I honestly just feel bad for him. Just wish he could have been honest with us so we could have helped him out a bit. Story 23. Had some relatives over, and despite very, very clear instructions to not flush feminine products down the toilet, they did anyways. Destroyed our septic field, almost $10,000 in damages overall. When confronted, they just denied it, despite the fact that the 32 pads that were pulled out of the system matches the brand that they had while they were over. Story 24. Back when I was younger, around 12 or 13, I remember my parents had another couple over that they had known for a short period of time. They brought their Husky over to the house, but we had a dog of ours that simply didn't get along well with other animals. This friendly couple had the audacity to demand that we put our dog in his kennel so that their dog could come on. Needless to say, they didn't stay for dinner that day, nor did I ever see them again. Story 25. Had 3 other housemates at the time. We all rented a small apartment on the beach from a friend. We played Risk, the board game, regularly, and we were in easily a 10-hour game that was going on for a few weeks. Super intense. The board is safely in the corner on the dining room table. No activity on the table is allowed when a board is on there. Well, one of our housemates came back with her friend. After the bars, and let's just say her friend is a dumb, annoying drunk who doesn't know her limit at damn 30 years old until she passes out. It was a weeknight. All of us had work the next morning, being a small place. Then boisterous girls woke us up. Not a big deal, but then we hear, "What's this crap?" And we just hear a hand swiping a game board with game pieces falling everywhere. This damn idiot just ruined our game in one fell swoop. The three of us that were home rush out of our respective rooms and see the nuclear holocaust that was our world. We flip the duck out. Even our mate who brought her was not happy. She basically tried to play dumb, then says, "What's the big deal?" We all gave her a blanket, told her we were all going to bed and get out by tomorrow morning. Unacceptable. Then she puked in our toilet, didn't clean up after herself, broke our shower curtain rod. How? And if I recall correctly, she left food out that went bad by next morning. About a year or two later, she abused another one of my friends. Story 26. Girlfriend of a roommate stayed the night frequently, so maybe she started feeling like it was her place too. Bless her heart. I have a lot of kitchen equipment, and I do not mind sharing as long as people clean it and keep it nice. So almost everything in the kitchen was mine. Anyway, she took it upon herself to rearrange things in my kitchen, including my stuff. I couldn't find anything in my own damn kitchen. I told her to move it all back exactly like it was before she ducked it up, or her boyfriend would have to buy all his own kitchen stuff. Story 27. Let a neighbor lady come over with her 2 young daughters to use our shower because her slacks husband hadn't paid the water bill. Went upstairs to the bathroom after they left. The bathtub was clogged with pubic hair. All over. The sides of the tub, bottom of the shower curtain, everywhere. Apparently, she decided to change her hairstyle. Story 28. Through a party. Random guy shows up claiming he's a friend of one of the invited guests, who didn't end up coming to the party. He proceeds to do a bunch of substances that he brought as no one else there was into it and pulls a knife on my friend. I tell him he needs to leave. He points the knife to me. Everyone surrounds him. He leaves. I don't remember his name, but he was the worst guest I've ever had, and hopefully will ever have over. Story 29. Back when we were newlyweds, my husband invited his guy friends for the weekend to do some activity. It's fine. I love most of his friends. I was going to put them on air mattresses in the basement. They arrived, and the one friend I only tolerate shows up with a woman, unannounced. We were all like 23 years old at the time, but his date was in her 50 years old. Not that the age issue was a thing, it was just interesting. Anyway, the woman was nice, but he completely ignored her the entire weekend. She spent the whole weekend hanging out with me. They didn't even get her a ticket to the event they went to, so I had to talk to people I don't know when I just wanted to relax around the house that weekend. There was also the issue that I couldn't put her and him in the basement on the air mattresses. I had to move my kid out of her bedroom and have her sleep with me. Yay! The friend ended up getting really drunk and breaking something on the storm door. We had to go buy some replacement part, but the most fun was what happened a week later. After my mom came to visit, I found a box of ribbed for her pleasure condoms in the bathroom cabinet. We didn't use them, so they definitely weren't ours. The only thing I can figure out is that they dropped their box in the throes of passion, and my mom found them in or around the bed when she slept there. Not that condoms are an embarrassing thing for a married couple to own, but now she thinks we have kinky sex in our daughter's room. Yay! Story 30. I was around 10 years old and a few of our neighbors were over swimming. One of the girls, a year younger than me, went to the bathroom and I went right after. She had pooped all over the toilet seat and didn't even try to clean it. It wasn't just a little, it was everywhere, and let me tell you, that girl needed more fiber in her diet. Her mom ended up yelling at her and making her clean it up. Story 31. This one dude at a party bragged that he never got hangovers. He then drank beer, vodka, champagne, and Boone's Farm while eating red vines. He threw up pink all over my carpet. The rude part was that after he slept on my couch for the next 24 hours, he left my front door open. When he left, I was at work. I came home to an open, not unlocked, but open front door. Story 32. They invited other people over without asking if we were okay with it. It wasn't even like we were having a party or anything. It was just me, my girlfriend, and her friend hanging out. Then the doorbell rang and she was like, "Oh, that's John and July." I told them to come over. It was late and definitely was not okay with having more people come over. Story 33. Made out with my now ex-wife. Also had a friend so very drunk mistake the dining room table for the toilet, come in, pull his pants down in full sight of all of us who were also drunk and drifting to sleep on couches and proceed to piss everywhere. Carpet. In his credit, when he woke up, he cleaned up the whole thing. Story 34. My ex-wife's sister used a $150 chef's knife to try and crack open a coconut in my kitchen. She dented it all over and also bent the tip somehow. She then said, "It must be a cheap knife because her sister in Thailand cuts them open super easy with a cleaver. It's one bright side of divorce that I never have to suffer her presence ever again." Story 35. When I was younger, my family had to take in foreign exchange students to make some money. It was usually a pretty fun experience and I got to learn a lot about other cultures. One student from Japan came. He was very shy and awkward around us. It's pretty common for the Asian students. I'm assuming it has to do with their culture. So pretty much the only times anyone would see him out of his room was when we were eating. After a couple of weeks of him staying with us, my dad found holes in the wall in our living room, which we later discovered he'd been stabbing our walls, and after he blamed me for it. We asked that he doesn't stay with us anymore, and he left. The only thing we had left to do was clean out his bedroom because there was another student coming. It turns out that he left us a present for us. Underneath his sheets was hundreds of tissues covered in semen. We were unable to follow up or let anyone know because for some reason the Japanese have a special coordinator set up, and she refused to inform the parents of the student and the house he was going to be living in. Story 36. My wife's sister was traveling through the area where we live on a cross-country trip. My wife hadn't seen her in 10 years and hasn't seen her since. This was 8 years ago. She gets a hotel a few miles from our house, updates her Facebook, and doesn't call. My wife has to basically guilt her into meeting us somewhere or stopping by. She decided to stop by and she brought her tiny loud dog with her. It pissed and crap all over the house while we briefly visited. Less than an hour. She didn't offer to help clean it up. I've been married to my wife for 15 years. And it remains the only time I've ever met that sister. Seems like a decent trade. Story 37. My parents were coming to visit from the opposite coast for the first time since I'd moved away, planning to stay in my guest room for the week. My aunt invited herself along at the last minute, guilting me into giving her my bedroom, leaving me on the couch. Then in the morning, she complained that my bedroom TV didn't work properly. It didn't have cable, was just set up with a Chromecast. I also had to change all the reservations I'd made for 3 to now be 4 and had to sell tickets to a performance in Bot because it was sold out and I couldn't get a 4th ticket for the aunt to join us. Story 38. We had a couple over for dinner, friends of ours. My wife was pregnant at the time. Cat pooped in litter box in the basement. Buddy's wife told me to change the litter, saying it was due to my wife being pregnant. I said I would after the board game we were playing was over as nobody could smell it. She said, "But your wife is pregnant," I said. "So?" She proceeds to empty her water cup across the table in my direction. It literally went over my shoulder and completely missed me. I'm stunned briefly at how unbelievably rude she is. Then begin to laugh my ass off that she missed me with a full cup of water point blank. I end the game, tell them to go home. She says, "We should do it again sometime." No, you rude idiot. I put up with you because your husband is my good friend. Wife and I close the door behind them after they leave, look into each other's eyes in silence for a few moments, then laugh our asses off again at what damn just happened. Story 39. When I was in high school, I brought a boy I was going out with to meet my family. He tried to cop a feel on my younger sister. Joke was on him, though. She beat the living crap out of him, then got to have my dad drag him out by the scruff of the neck. Story 40. We had friends who were a couple, and the girlfriend was notorious for being high maintenance, and her boyfriend, who was too nice for his own good, sometimes would bend over backwards for her. One evening, we invited them and a few other friends over to our place. We made dinner and desserts and had drinks for everyone, and we had invited everyone over for a game night. I guess she had gotten bored. They had only been over for about 2 hours or so and started asking everyone if they'd rather go see a movie and just wouldn't drop it, so my husband and I were like, "Okay, we have movies here if that's what you'd rather do." But no, she wanted to see one that had just come out, and her boyfriend tried talking her out of it at first, but then eventually gave in and was, "Well, we are going to go to the movies," and it made it super awkward and no one else seemed like they wanted to go. But he called a lift for everyone, so we were kind of guilted into it. I thought it was a very mean thing to do, but we were new to town and they were the first friends we made, so we let it slide. They later had a nasty breakup, and it all came out how controlling and manipulative she was. Story 41. My crafty cousins were allowed to run wild. I hated it when they came over. The younger one was around 11 years old and was just oblivious to all social expectations. He helped himself to the fridge and ate all the ice cream we had, then complained that it wasn't any good, and just roamed around the house, rummaging through our stuff. His older brother, who is a year older than me and was 16 years old at the time, waltzed into my room and started messing with my guitars, which I was protective of because they're damn expensive, and would change the tuning, whack it around, etc. Then he picked up my air rifle, which was powerful enough to kill at least a squirrel or rabbit, went outside, and started pointing it at my neighbor's cows. I'm very non-confrontational and usually just put up with annoyances, but I tore into him for that. I was taught from the time I was a toddler that you don't ever treat guns like toys and you never point them at anything you don't intend to shoot, whether it's loaded or not, especially damn living creatures. Thankfully, they weren't closely related and I only saw them like 5 times in my life, but them being basically strangers to me made their behavior even more mind-boggling. Story 42. When Pokemon Go first came out, I made tons of new friends around my neighborhood. We'd meet up and walk around and just feel like kids again. This one girl, I wasn't super familiar with her, but she seemed nice enough, added me on Facebook, and I didn't think much of it. We talked a couple times. One night, though, out of the blue, she texts me freaking out that her BF kicked her out and she had nowhere to go, and could she crash on my couch just for the night? Well, my roommate wouldn't have been cool with it, so I just told her to come crash in my room and I'll sleep on the floor. So she gets there and says she has some stuff for class the next day. College, so she starts doing it, and we just chill. Then she asks where the bathroom is, and I tell her. She comes back, high on substances. She just plops on the floor and stares at her notes. Meanwhile, I'm texting my friends trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, she just falls asleep. I spent a lot of the night not sleeping and hoping she wasn't dead. I called her an Uber in the morning and blocked her. Story 43. A Christian missionary and his wife were invited to our home as a guest of my partner. He'd known them in grade school. The husband kicked my dog when he was scared by the fireworks, so barked during the story he was telling about being in Africa helping kids. What a juxtaposition of morals. We immediately told them to leave. They acted very confused about it. Story 44. I shared a house with a few friends, and one of them let a broke friend crash in a large closet we had. A couple days turned into weeks and then into months. And it all came to a head one day when I got home from working construction in the middle of winter. I was literally caked in mud and shivering. And when I walked in the front door, I could hear the shower running, and closet guy was sitting on the couch in a bathrobe. I asked him who was in the shower as I was dripping mud on the floor, and he replied, "Bobby, and I'm next." He was not next. Story 45. Once a friend was sleeping on my boyfriend's couch after a night of drinking. We woke up the next morning, and the only bathroom was locked from the inside. No answer. I just knew he was dead. After quite some time, we were able to jimmy something that could unlock the door, only to find the bathroom empty and no friend. He had filled up the little bathroom trash can with diarrhea and fled in the night. Story 46. My wife and I let one of her classmates stay over one night a week during a semester of grad school, rather than commute an hour on questionable roads during the winter. The classmate in question would take the vilest craps in our guest bathroom and never flush. Needless to say, our relationship soured after that. Story 47. My wife had a friend who has kids come over and stay at our house. 5 kids. The woman let the kids run around our house wherever they wanted, even through doors that were closed and they had been told not to go through. At one point, 2 girls were in the bathroom and started flashing items, including a brush that got stuck in the bend of the toilet. I never was able to get it out and had to buy a whole new toilet. At the end of the night, when we were getting the kids ready to go to bed, she took her 5 kids and sat in the middle of our living room and sang songs. She then sent the kids to bed and told us we had to go to bed because she didn't want us waking up her kids. I am not the type of guy who tells his wife what she can and cannot do, but I told her when they left that they will never ever be allowed in our house again. She agreed without argument. The woman did try to come back to stay, and my wife told her flat out she had to stay in a hotel and she could visit them in a public place. Story 48. Took a shower and pulled my shower curtain rod so hard it bent into a V, but never said a word to me or my then fiancé, his own brother. We all left at the same time in the morning. I found it once I got home from work. Yeah, I was pissed. Story 49. My roommate and I used to make dinner for friends every Monday. Everyone knew, and I never spread the word. A bunch of random people would just show up each week. One guy never missed it, even though I didn't actually know him that well. Just tangentially through coworkers, and didn't really like him much, to be honest. One night, he got there very late and helped himself to the food, which was pasta that night, cooked al dente. As soon as he tried it, he started gating, "This is the most undercooked pasta I've ever had. It tastes terrible. Someone needs to show you how to cook pasta," etc. I just took it without saying anything, thinking to myself, sorry, it's not my fault your mom has overcooked your macaroni your entire life. But after that, my motivation for doing the weekly dinners died, and I stopped. Personally, I would never ever say anything bad about someone's cooking as a guest at their house, even if it was terrible. Story 50. A friend of my dad lost his house, and we had a former guest house, so we invited them to stay with us. We housed and fed them for weeks while they found another place. For that, we got roaches, criticisms of our food. My dad was the executive chef at a freaking country club and was a damned fine cook. But that wasn't the worst for me, then in my late teens. The day they left, I went to play my favorite game on PlayStation, Sled Storm. Couldn't find it. Overturned freaking everything, but I couldn't find it. In searching, I noticed something even worse. My signees, all games, and half my N64 games were missing in addition to Sledstorm. They had stayed with us as a favor and stolen half my crap that I had paid for with birthday money saved up over years. Damn those people. Story 51. Literally called my husband ugly to his face in his own home. I almost picked her up and threw her out, but I definitely can't lift 300 pounds. Story 52. One of my friends in kindergarten wanted a Beanie Baby I had, and when I told her she couldn't have it, she took it away from me and tried to flush it down the toilet. Then when the toilet started overflowing and my mom came in, she started crying and said I did it. We did not stay friends. Story 53. Had out-of-state in-laws stay with us for a weekend. They brought an old family friend, no big deal. 3 weeks later, we learned he ordered 3 different adult films totaling almost $70. He was sleeping on the couch. There were at least 6 kids under 10 that could have walked in on him to get to the kitchen or bathroom. Story 54. This is about an undisciplined kid. I hate those. My mom attempted to hold piano classes in our house once, and there was this one time when a mom and her young, like 7-year-old daughter, came for an inquiry. All the time the mom and my mom were standing and talking, and the daughter was walking around touching everything, opening all the containers, looking in, playing with things, and the mom acted like she didn't see a thing. The daughter opened a container above our piano and pulled out sheets of stickers. My stickers. She really liked them and turned around to ask her mom, "Mom, can I take these?" To which her mom replied, "Yeah, sure," as if it's theirs. My mom didn't say much, and shy as I was, I didn't say anything either. Over a decade later, I'm still angry about the incident. The girl just went ahead and took my stickers. Story 55. I was a pretty recent college student who at the time was willing to give people a chance. Still do, but less trusting now. I had this one roommate who was just a massive narcissist and borderline psychopath, purposely manipulated people, tried to toy with their emotions to get a rise out of them. The whole thing. And the only reason I put up with him was my other roommate, who was a great friend. Mr. Ponytail Narcissist decides to bring his friends, plural, over for something he liked to call Getting Wednesdays, which was a ritual of getting crap-faced in the middle of the week. Well, us productive members of college don't usually do this. I try and ignore it per usual and fall asleep. Next morning, I found out one of his extremely overweight and equally as crafty human friends decides to try and fight everyone at the party for trying to calm him down because he's loud, and it's a Wednesday. People are trying to sleep. Crazy concept, right? Well, I find out they finally restrain him, and he goes to sleep. On my futon that I love, this giant tub of lard decided to open up his bowels. All over my futon. Piss and poop everywhere. I'm still bitter about it today. Story 56. Parents stayed at our place for the weekend and ended up leaving Monday morning after wife and I had gone to work. Got a text from my dad that I would want to buy a new toothbrush because he had some extra time and wanted to help clean kitchen, and that my stand mixer wasn't dirty anymore. Wasn't my toothbrush. Wife doesn't want them to visit anymore. Honestly, me either. Story 57. A married friend of my fiance was staying with us for a week. She ended up going out and meeting some dude somewhere and invited him over to our place to duck. When they got there, my fiancé and I were both home, so the friend and if she could borrow our bedroom. When we said no, the guy asked if he could shoot up heroin in our apartment. When my fiancé told him no and asked him to leave, he groped her. When she told me to call the cops, he pulled a knife and threatened them both of us. This is the only time I've ever pointed a loaded gun at another human being. When the cops arrived, we found out the crap bag had several warrants out for various crimes, including aggravated assault and abuse. We don't talk to that friend anymore, and we did inform her husband of this situation. Story 58. This happened about a month ago. We live in North Carolina and got hot with a hurricane. My sister-in-law's place got messed up, and we let her stay with us for a little while. After about 2 weeks, she started taking Adderall amongst a slew of other meds and was getting really ducked up on it. She started locking herself in the bathroom and sleeping on the toilet, leaving the door open and falling asleep while smoking outside, and passing out on the floor in random places and leaving pills scattered all over the floor. Not to mention we have 2 small kids who are running around. When we asked her to stop taking the pills, she freaked and told us she was going to claim residency at our place and that my wife was only with me because I had money. I told her I was done and it wasn't safe for our kids. She had to go. She ended up saying my wife was dead to her unless she takes the kids and leaves me. Needless to say, she chose to stay, and now we don't have to deal with her sister's problems anymore because we are dead to her. Story 59. Had a bunch of people over for a New Year's event. One woman I used to work with was invited. We were pretty good friends at work, and generally her and my wife got along. The whole night, she sat there hitting on me and trying to put her hand on my knee. It was really weird. Not to mention she had recently gotten married, which made it extra awkward. I wrote it off as something weird until I talked to my wife the next couple days. Turns out, she had been talking to my wife a lot that night and kept trying to imply I had cheated or was going to cheat. Basically kept trying to wedge her way into our relationship in a really ducked up way. Luckily, my wife isn't stupid and just ignored her bullcrap all night. So I cut ties with that person, and luckily, we don't work together anymore. Ran into her a couple times since then. Been polite, but also cold. Such a weird situation. Story 60. My son, 12 years old, had built every Star Wars Lego ship together, minus the Falcon, which was to be our next set to build. We even had our own Lego lingo. He'd say, "Mom, I need a tower by Fowler or a oneer," so on. This was our thing to do, as he has a twin sister, so it was important that I spend quality time with each of them, doing things they each love to do. I had invited a friend over who brought her son. We will call him Master Destroyer. Master Destroyer is known to be a troublemaker. His father passed away and mommy lets him get away with whatever he wants or does. He was upstairs playing Legos with our son while I visited with the mom, my mistake, when next thing I know, son comes down visibly upset, only for us to find out Master Destroyer had picked up every single Lego Star Wars set we had ever built together and smashed them on the ground. Friend made Master Destroyer apologize and they left right after. Our son never touched a Lego again after that. It wasn't just the destruction of the Legos, but this kid, Master Destroyer, ruined our thing that brought my son and I together. I still talk to the friend, but have kindly told her that her son isn't welcomed over. Even though it's been almost 5 years since this occurred, his behavior hasn't changed, nor has the discipline the mom lacks. I refuse to let him take anything else away from my son that he holds dear to him. I have set the Legos aside, along with all of the instructions, in hope that one day when he is a father, he will crack open the tubs of Legos and have a connection with his kids, as we once had. Story 61? She got drunk, got naked, got on my bed, and refused to get off. I'm also a woman and have no reason to think she's gay. Wasn't cool. It was just annoying. Story 62. Punch a brick wall and smear their red liquid all over the garage door. At least that's one of them. I let my sister live with me for a year, and every second of it was a waking nightmare. Story 63. My brother was having an end-of-the-school year party, which meant like 60 of his 18-year-old friends were plastered drunk in my basement. I'm 2 years younger than my brother, and my age group hadn't really hit their full party stride yet, so this was kind of my first experience with drunk teens. I was walking down the stairs into my basement, spotted this one dude attempting to give some pre-frat bro speech from on top of the table. He kept trying to get the room's attention and was screaming for everybody to shut up. But nobody cared about anything other than being drunk and catching up with their friends. This dude got frustrated that nobody cared about his soapbox moment, and he proceeded to leap off the table he was standing on, and damn, we elbow dropped the brand new ping pong table in the middle of the room. Splitting it in half and knocking over a crowd of kids' parties can get kind of crazy, but I was just shocked at the audacity of this kid. That's not your table. This is not your house. My parents are out like $400. And now everybody thinks you're a jackass. To this day, I suck at ping pong because I never got the chance to play. Also, that kid is now a police officer. Story 64. Oh man, looks like I came late to the party. I have a perfect one. My old roommate needed a place to crash as he'd gotten kicked out of his new apartment that I helped him get as a reference. My wife and I are both very good friends with him. I had already left for work and he was asleep on the couch downstairs. My wife comes down about an hour later and startles him. He's asleep naked on our couch. He gets up, realized he's naked, and then grabs the blanket to cover up. We had a talk where my wife and I both explained that you can't sleep naked on your friend's couch, where he tried to tell us that we were being ridiculous because the sheet was a good enough barrier to keep his naked body from touching the couch. Then 2 weeks after he leaves, my wife starts noticing bites on her legs. Bedbugs. He gave us mother damn bedbugs. It took us months to get rid of. My wife cried almost daily there for a little while. She was so stressed. We ended up getting all new living room furniture because of it. Now we love the guy. He's dopey at times. And we knew that going in. We just didn't realize how painful of a situation this would have caused. That said, he paid the exterminator's fees over the course of 6 months, and he genuinely felt horrible. So he's not a bad guy, just dumb sometimes. Story 65. My grandpa was a carpenter, and he made for me for Christmas when I was around 7 years old the most intricate and beautiful doll's house imaginable. It had electrical fittings with tiny chandeliers. It had furniture. It had fireplaces and doors, wallpaper, you name it. My mom organized a play date at our house a few months into the new year. I remember watching in horror as the chandeliers were ripped from the ceilings, doors ripped off their hinges, etc. It wasn't wear and tear. It was mindless. I ran crying to my mom and the other mom of my play date. The other mom laughed it off and said that's why she won't get expensive things for her daughter. It absolutely broke my heart, and probably my grandpa's too. As such a careful and thoughtful child, I hope someone explained to him it wasn't me that destroyed the doll's house so quickly. The older I get, the more I realize what an awful thing that child did, and more over how the parent handled it. I still think about it now. I hope I can restore it if I ever have children of my own. Story 66. Stole my forks. Such an odd thing to take from someone, but they stole them. They weren't even fancy ones. Literally cheap forks you buy at Walmart, like the ones that are like 4 for a couple bucks. Story 67. I got a job producing a short orientation video and asked my videographer friend from another state if he would come to do the filming. He said he would if he could bring his girlfriend and stay with us. 1. Came home after first shoot day to find the girlfriend digging up plants in our yard and replacing them with other plants she had bought for us at a nursery. Out of line, but sort of nice, so let that one go. 2. Second night, after dinner, came into living room and saw her standing on a step stool and rearranging the vintage vases I had on a mantle, some of which were very valuable, so that they were in order of height. Jokingly asked her what she was doing. She said they looked better that way. They did not. Told her to put them back the way they were, then reconsidered, and asked her to step aside. I put them back the way they were. 3. Third and final, my husband is a chef. He makes incredible pizza, spends 2 days on the dough, San Marzano tomatoes, etc. Always makes 2 extra pies so we have them for next day dinner. The last night of their stay, he made pizza. At the end of the meal, this woman said, "Wrap up the leftovers for me because I'm taking them with me on the plane tomorrow." I thought she was joking and I laughed. She got angry and snapped, "I mean it, wrap them up, I'm taking them." I was aghast and said, "That's our dinner for tomorrow." And she said very angrily, "You get to eat this way all the time. I'm taking that pizza with me." It got ugly. It was ridiculous. My poor friend jumped up, apologized for her, and ushered her out of the kitchen and up to their room. Saw 4. The next morning, before leaving for the airport, she stood in our kitchen with crossed arms and said she would just take 2 pieces with her. I said no, she would not, opened the door, and stood there waiting for her to exit. Story 68. College housemate had a drunken hookup. She flipped out on him when she realized he had a physical disability. He was born with 1 fully formed hand and 1 partial hand. She stormed out of his room, but before leaving the house, she confused our closet under the stairs with a bathroom and pissed all over the floor and the boxes of Christmas stuff in there. We got the story out of our housemate a few weeks later when putting up the Christmas tree and trying to figure out why it smelled like pee. Story 69. College roommate's boyfriend. He never acted as a guest. He claimed he didn't have to because he helped his girlfriend pay rent sometimes. He would think he could make apartment decisions, and his decisions weighed more because he was the only man and he was a cop. He would invite his friends over and vape so much that we had water damage on the ceiling and walls. He would come back from bar close on weekdays and bang on all of our doors to try and wake us up. My roommates and I kind of feared him at first because he was a cop and we were minors who underage drank a lot. He made the mistake of buying me alcohol one time, and I used that as leverage to get him to shut the ever-loving duck up. On the water damage, he would turn the heat up to hot box. Didn't pay utility bills, though. You would walk into a super hazy and humid vape cloud. We had brownish water droplet-looking stains on the ceiling and top of the walls. Mercifully, the landlord didn't have a neck to look up, so we never got charged. Story 70. I once had a roommate move in on a Sunday or Monday, say he'd pay for the room on Friday. Seemed reasonable enough. What is he going to do? Refuse to pay. He was renting theoretically for the rest of the summer, like 2-3 months. So that seemed unlikely. He seemed like kind of a shy, weird guy, but didn't seem too bad. This was probably like 15 years ago when I was in college. Doesn't leave the room at all as far as me or anyone else can tell. We even had a small gathering of people and invited him to join us. No dice. Friday comes along and he rushes out of the house and into a car, I think with his mother. Never heard from him again. We go into the room and we found a cup in the closet that he had peed in. I will never forget you. Peas in cups, guy. I don't remember your name. I barely remember what you look like, but I'll always remember you peed in a cup and left it in the ducking closet. Story 71. My eldest daughter had a friend come back with her from college over the summer, and we had agreed that she was fine to stay with us over the summer break since they both were doing summer internships locally. It was our first time meeting her, and initially she was a delight for all of about 3 days. The first thing that really got to me was that she decided that she needed to give our housekeeper specific instructions on making her bed, doing her laundry, and when she was allowed into the guest room or not. Our housekeeper is only there to feed and walk the dogs during the day because we're gone and the kids are away, and do light laundry and grocery shopping for my husband and myself only. Our kids manage their own laundry when they come home, and I clean my house on the weekends. She tried explaining this to the girl, but as my housekeeper said, she wasn't having any of that. The next thing that happened was she decided that maybe a low-pay, no-pay internship wasn't for her, and that she would just chill out for the summer and enjoy her vacation. I found this out by coming home early one day because I wasn't feeling well to find her and 2 guys naked in our hot tub. After hearing about the summer job being over with and her desire for a vacation, I reiterated the rules of the house and that she agreed to them on day 1. She proceeded to tell me that she's a grown damn woman and she'll get with whatever man wherever she damn well pleases. I turned around and walked in my house and locked the doors. She was still outside with no clothes and just a towel. I scooped up her crap into a black contractor bag and threw it out on the front porch, minus our other daughter's car keys who was away at school. The girl literally had a very cushy summer with a free car, room, food, and just about anything that she could have needed as long as she worked 5 hours a day, 3 days a week, and followed the house rules. Instead, she struggled to put her underwear on behind a shrub and walked away carrying her crap in a black garbage bag. Story 72. A girl poured an entire bottle of whiskey out on the counter on purpose at one of the parties my roommates threw in college. That or leaving half-empty shotgunner cans all over the damn place. What a waste. Story 73. I'm pissed just typing this, even though it has been years. Some of my wife's family came to visit. The idea was that on their way to the Smoky Mountains, they would stop and visit with us for a day or two, since we seldom see each other and our house is on the way. Turns out that was total BS. They just wanted to use our house as a free hotel, which to a degree is fine. I don't mind lending a room to a family member, but they were not even remotely cool about it. First, they called and asked if we could have something for them to eat because it would be late when they arrived and had no time to stop. So I decided I would make a lasagna since I'm kind of known for that in the family. So I spent like $60 and several hours to make 2 big pans of lasagna since it would have to feed several people. They showed up with chic fila bags and said they had already eaten. Then they went immediately to their rooms upstairs. Not to sleep, but to watch TVs in the bedroom, without hardly saying a thing to us besides, "Hi, how's it going?" Then in the middle of the night, one of them got cold and turned the thermostat up to like 77 degrees, which means the heater ran non-stop for hours and hours, and we woke up damn near in a sweat. When they woke up, they asked if I normally cook breakfast. I said no, not on weekdays because I have to go to work. They gave dejected looks, so I was like, fine, I can make breakfast. Would you guys like waffles or eggs and bacon? They said eggs, so I made a crap ton of eggs and bacon and left it for them because I had to go to work. When I got home, they hadn't even touched the food I made. The kitchen was an absolute disaster because they decided they wanted waffles instead and helped themselves without even asking. Dirtying every damn dish in the house and ruining my waffle iron because they left it on until it auto shut off, but by then had burned the batter until it was fused to the thing and the whole house reeked of burnt waffles for 2 days. They also clearly scratched my wife's car as they left because it was in the driveway, and coincidentally had huge scratch where maroon paint had rubbed off, and guess what color their van was. I asked them about it, and they said they had no idea how it got there. Story 74. Years ago, an out-of-town family, mom, dad, adult daughter, invited themselves to my parents' home and stayed over the weekend. This was a former co-worker of my mom's. They were not well off, and they saw this visit as a little vacation to our remote home. Without any warning, they brought their 2 aggressive and spoiled poodles while knowing we had a dog. We had to lock our dog in a bedroom for the duration of their stay as the other 2 would attack him. The dogs also peed and pooped everywhere inside the house. And the owners would simply point it out and do nothing or offer to clean it. They'd simply sit and watch my poor mom scrub the floor. At one point I was outside, and the adult daughter walked over to let me know she wanted tea. I pointed out that she knew where the kitchen was and that she should feel at home and make herself a cup. She huffed, went back inside, and made a scene about how I, a young kid, was a rude and terrible host, and had the audacity to suggest that she, a guest, make her own cup of tea. She refused my mom's offer to make her some, and she did not stop complaining until I got dragged in and made tea. For the first time in my life, I might add. The whole thing was very strange. My parents have had many guests over the years, but never anything remotely this entitled. They were never allowed to return. Story 75. Probably all the events leading up to my roommates sitting on my lounge chair ass naked after sex. A few years back, one of my roommates, Janelle, brought her friend Grady, I'd egg-aff if she sees this, I hope her giraffe ass can see this, in to stay with us because of family issues. She was totally normal, I didn't care. Everything went downhill when Grady's boyfriend was seen at a club with another woman. It turned out to be a total misunderstanding, but she spiraled after that and tried to drag us all with her. Sleeping with the guys from our school's basketball team to provoke a reaction from her ex, bringing friends over with many substances, and she also used my kitchen utensils to make friend Oreos all the damn time. But I woke up very early to get ready for work, and I hear her having sex in the living room. Damn it, I'll still get ready anyway. Being in a hole, I walked into the kitchen, and there they were, had sex on my beautiful lounge chair. We all bought furniture pieces when we moved in, and I had gotten a great deal on the lounge chair and had it placed near the window to drink coffee in the morning. The worst part? She saw me and stood up really fast, causing all their fluids to fall out of her and onto my chair. My best friend recounts it as the day I became a banshee. Damn you, Grady, and damn your ex for ruining your mental health in my chair. Story 76. I had a friend over one time when I was about 11. We were both on our Nintendo and he said, "I'll be right back." After waiting forever, I heard what I thought was a weed whacker engine outside. I looked out the window and saw that he had gone into my garage and was riding around my small motor scooter. I was so bothered. I didn't know this kid well at all and he'd only been over one time previously. Story 77. I let my mom and her husband stay at my apartment during a particularly cold winter a few years ago. They were homeless addicts at the time. I had put the simple rule of don't bring that home and I would allow them to stay. For the first month or so, it remained an out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. Not ideal, but I didn't want to ditch my family at such a bad time. Eventually, they had to screw it all up. Without going into too many details, her husband had a warrant out for his arrest. I was unaware of this at the time. So I got to be awoken at 1 in the morning to my mom busting into my bedroom to let me know that the cops were in my living room. Of course, I groggily make my way out to one of the most irritable cops I've ever met. He demands to know where he is. I don't know. I was asleep. They search around the apartment looking for him and making a general mess. About an hour later, they leave. At that point, I needed to be up at 4 for work, and I was too angry to even care. I went to bed. The cops ended up watching my apartment for about a month. To make matters worse, about 4 days later, I hop onto my computer in the living room. I noticed that my mom had left her email open and decided to do some snooping about. Maybe not my best moment, but I come across an email chain from earlier that day about scoring some substances for later that night. I was livid, bringing the cops into my home at horrible hours and then not holding to the only thing I asked them to do. I tried not to ask for much, and they couldn't abide by that one simple thing. I didn't ask them to quit, just don't bring it into my home. I saved some choice screenshots and called my work asking for the next day off. When they came back, I told them to be gone tomorrow, and they weren't welcome back. I stayed home to make sure they didn't steal anything and made sure they didn't have a key. I sure as hell wasn't happy about it, but boundaries needed to be placed. I'd been dealing with their drug use for years, and I wasn't going to have it continue to affect my life. As it stands now, she doesn't even know where I live anymore, and I don't plan on telling her. Not going to happen again. To happen. Story 78. I wouldn't classify this as rude, per se, but it's weird enough and close enough to deserve a mention. One time I was chilling with my roommates, and a mutual friend of ours dropped by to try out the new at the time virtual reality system. He asks us if it's cool to bring another dude with him, so we say sure. The more the merrier. Flash forward to mid-gaming session, and the group of us are generally having a good time. Friend of a friend guy, I never learned his name, asks where the bathroom is. Nothing unusual to see here, of course. But when he got to the bathroom, we could all hear him take a shower, in a total stranger's house, without mentioning it. The dude must have been a raisin by the time he finished because he was in there for what seemed like an eternity. My personal unfounded suspicion is, he was knocking one out in the bathroom, but that may just be me imagining crap, and he was actually just taking a long shower. He finally emerges, and he obviously didn't bring a towel with him or anything, and me and my roommates usually keep that sort of crap in our bedrooms as the bathroom aren't all that big on shelving space. There's a little hand towel, but not enough to dry yourself. He was absolutely dripping wet and had simply donned his clothes over his soaked body. He acted as though nothing had happened, and the rest of us just kind of gave each other meaningful looks and pretended nothing had happened because we are too British to actually raise the awkward point. Story 79. During a party at our house, a classmate who liked to get crap-faced in no time got wasted, made a vomit mess in the first-floor bathroom, stays there for hours passed out. Then he decided, boy, this bathroom is ducked up and smells awful. Proceeds to do the same crap with our second-floor bathroom. Canceled the whole party because of it. My roomie was pissed. But hey, it's late, get some sleep. Turns on his room light, and the vomit ducker is sleeping there with an unhealthy puddle of puke covering the sheets. Damn that guy. Story 80. One time when I was 8 years old, my mom was babysitting this kid. He had to go to the bathroom, and I don't know if there was no toilet paper or what. But later that day, my mom found crap all over the walls. What the heck? Story 81. A family friend's son found my sister's Game Boy and started a new game on her Pokemon crystal and saved, deleting her old file. Kid was old enough to know that it's rude to play someone else's Game Boy without asking. I remember her being really upset. Pokemon is no joke when you're young. Story 82. My roommate had a buddy over to hang at our apartment. Dude shows up with a 30 rack of beer, then proceeds to drink the entire thing, vehemently refusing to share. He blacked out and pissed on our television. I punched him in the face and told him to kick rocks. Story 83. I was 6 years old and my aunt would come over and bring along my little git of a cousin who was a year younger than me. This kid would follow me around and want to do everything I was doing. Like I would start playing PlayStation and he wanted me to stop so he could play. I would use the computer, then all of the sudden he wants to. So I had to let him. Same for toys, etc. I was always forced to let him do this to me because if I told him no, he would cry. And not just any cry, but the most obnoxious, annoying, fake cry anyone could ever cry. Of course, I knew it was fake as crap, but my mom and aunt wanted him to shut the hell up, so they made me give him whatever the duck he wanted. They came over multiple times a week, and the same thing happened every time. One time I even shoved him telling him no, but he cried and cried and cried. And once he got what he wanted with the power of the parents on his side, he always gave me this stupid smirk. One day, though, I had enough and went full Rocky on his left arm, throwing left hook, right hook, over and over until I was out of breath. That day, his cry was real, and it was one of those where he couldn't talk because he was crying so much. I got in so much trouble, but boy was it worth it. Story 84. So we had our wedding in my in-laws' home to save on money. Needless to say, there was a lot of drinking going on during the after-party, and one of my wife's bridesmaids got just trashed. Long story short, we found her bridesmaid's dress covered in puke in our shower, and on the main stairway, she left a huge crap, just like in the middle of the staircase. Two of my groomsmen got it cleaned up before my mother-in-law even noticed, though. Story 85. My dad runs a business at home, and oftentimes big clients would come over for dinner or to stay for a week or two. This one man, very important, tons of money and a very loyal customer of ours, and his family flew from Germany all the way to our house in Texas to stay with us for a week. My sister and I had to share my room while their two kids took hers, and the parents took the guest room. The first night, we woke up to screaming coming from the kids' room. Sis and I ran in there to see the little girl, probably about 5 years old, standing bare-ass naked, just pissing all over our bed, screaming and crying something in German that we, of course, can't understand. She points to my dollhouse on the other side of the room, where her older brother, probably 7 years old, had ripped off the door and was eagerly tearing apart my sister's prized Lego formula, one Michael Schumacher set that she spent days putting together with no instructions. He was throwing half the pieces at his sister and stuffing the rest in his underwear. The parents came in, ours right behind them, and just sat the kids back down in bed and started reading a book to them. Still sitting in piss, still with Legos in his pants. My mom, bless her, told them that they need to clean up the mess immediately. Those a-holes just said it's not a big deal, they're just toys, and we'll call someone in the morning to clean. They were promptly kicked out and told to find a hotel for the rest of their stay. Story 86. Neighborhood friend that I knew for years, we went to high school and middle school together, had recently adopted a puppy. Her parents are notoriously awful, the kind that would rather not deal with issues or put in any sort of effort into anything. This cavalier attitude translated to their parenting and subsequently their dog training. One day, my friend came over my house to introduce her dog to my little sister and I. At this point in time, I and the girl are about 14 years old. Little sister is 11 years old. While my friend and I were talking, the dog poops on my floor. Not a big deal. We have dogs too. There's just one issue. The girl won't clean it up. I informed her that as this is her dog, she should clean up her dog's poop. She giggles, looks around, and through laughter says, "No way I'm not cleaning up dog poop." So I ended up kicking the girl out of my house, and while I informed my friend that there are indeed such things as social norms, etiquette, my little sister cleaned up the poop. The lack of awareness and overall maturity still blows my mind to this day. Story 87. When I was much younger, my mom's aunt came and visited and brought her dog. We didn't see her too much, but she was close with my mom back when mom was a kid. During the visit, the dog dropped a loaf on the living room carpet. Not a big deal, you would think, but my mom had the audacity to ask her to clean up after her own dog. Apparently, this was a degree of rudeness my aunt had never experienced before from a host. The offense was so deep that she never spoke to my mother for the rest of her life. She moved across the country, and the only time we ever heard from her again was when I got a letter from her saying that I should get some genetic tests for something that might be in the family. Final plot twist, since she never married, and I was the only male descendant in her family line, so she left me everything in her will. Story 88. My brother-in-law refused to eat any of the food I made for Thanksgiving dinner once. Also told me my nieces wouldn't eat it and asked if I could make something else. Yeah, that's going to be a no. Story 89. Had a friend come over to drink and play games once. He set his drink down on my desk that had my PC, Xbox, Switch, books, etc. I told him that drinks weren't allowed on the desk, and he replied, "Well, I put drinks on my desk, it's fine." I told him he can do whatever he wants at his place, but I don't want drink around all this expensive stuff. He told me I needed to chill out, and he would move his drink. When he tried to move his drink, he proceeded to knock it over, break the glass, and get vodka and soda all over my PC, a couple books, and the bottom of my Xbox. Story 90. Take a massive crap in our guest bathroom, use literally all of the toilet paper on the roll, clog the toilet, and then leave and not tell anyone. Found out a few days later when my poor brother lifted the seat and almost passed out. The crap and toilet paper mix had fossilized into this horrible light brown rough streaky vortex that looked like a portal to hell. Had to call out a plumber to fix it. Never felt comfortable going in that bathroom again. Story 91. I had my then boyfriend's uncle staying at our house. He was on hard times and looking to move closer to his family. We offered to let him stay as our guest for a couple of weeks while he looked for a job and secured independent housing. This man was a total slob. Slept in our recliner in our living room, essentially silently protesting the guest bedroom we had prepared for him. 2 weeks, of course, turned into 3, and still he had no job or information about moving. I offered to take him to a local business that allocates jobs and housing assistance once I was off work one morning. I managed to get off 2 hours early since taking him to his appointment was top priority to me. Walk in the front door and behold, Uncle's claimed chair was sitting empty. Perhaps he's out putting in resumes at one of the nearby businesses. I walked to my bedroom door, which was weirdly closed, and opened it, revealing Uncle Pleasure himself in my bed. Story 92. He wasn't really a guest, per se, but when I was 12 years old, my parents were remodeling our home using a one-man construction company. We had 2 indoor-only cats. One was mine, the other was my brother's, and the contractor didn't approve of this. He thought cats should only be outside, so he left doors open all the time and wouldn't bother to try to keep them inside while working. I came home from school one day and couldn't find the cat that was mine. After searching the house, my dad and I went door to door in our neighborhood with her picture. One of our neighbors had found her, hit by a car, and had taken her to the dump with his household trash. At least I have the closure of knowing what happened to her, though. Story 93. A guy I knew got dumped by his wife, a longtime friend of mine. He had nowhere else to really go, so he asked to sleep on my couch for a few nights. I was okay with it, even if he obviously asked me because he knew it'd make her mad. He was a bit of a slob, refusing to clean after himself or take a shower. Okay, I can handle it. He stayed for a week, not a few days. Okay, I can handle it. He came to my place completely drunk one night, pounding on my door until I got up and let him in. His words were something like, "If you don't open this door next time, I'll break it down." Okay, I'm getting pissed, but I can handle it. Wake up the next day to find he pissed and crap all over my couch. Clean this crap up and get out of my house. Story 94. When I was in high school, my sister used to sneak her boyfriend into the house. I caught him one night, and he escaped on my bike. I don't think he ever came back after that. It was a really nice bike, too. What I just found out just a few days ago is creepier. This was around the time he had abused a girl, and a few years after he had abused a boy. He's in jail now. Story 95. Some neighborhood kid who was a friend of my little brother came to the house. When he left, I found a crap smear on the side of our bathtub. His nickname was Turtle. From then on, we called him Turtle. Never said we were creative. Story 96. We had a housewarming party, and about 2 hours in, I found a cup of cotton balls completely full of red-tinged water in our hall bathroom. Everyone was still relatively sober, and no one owned up to it. The next day, we found red liquid on the shower curtain and a brand new box of Crest white strips empty. Nowhere to be found in any room. Trash. Anything. 4 years later, and we still have no idea what happened or who did it. Story 97. My family has had this large wood dinner table that's been passed through the family for years. A truly beautiful work of art. When I was about 8 years old, I had a friend from school named Max over, and we were working on homework at the table. Max was using a protractor to draw perfect circles when he realized he could use the sharp end to carve his name into our nice table. Now, when we have guests over, a common topic of discussion for dinner is, who's Max? My parents were pretty pissed when they found the carving, but eventually moved on. Now it's just another funny story to tell. Story 98. Left tissue papers all over and inside the couch, and on the coffee table. These tissue papers are those that were sneezed on, wet. Plus, putting her feet on the coffee table where I put my glass of water and food on. But yeah, I had to tell her off to pick those tissue papers and get them into a bin ASAP every time she comes over. Story 99. I was around 11 years old at the time, and I had been building up a collection of Lego Star Wars sets for a number of years. Well, one day, the carpenter we were paying to do some renovations brought his little 4-year-old kids with him to our place. One of them decided it would be really fun to get up on my table, with maybe 5 Lego sets on it, and just jump all over it. I was never able to find all the parts, and a lot of pieces broke. I was devastated. Story 100. A friend of mine was over in middle school and found out we had Wi-Fi. He immediately asked for the password and went straight into a bathroom with his iPod Touch. He proceeded to pleasure himself with my sister.